voice in my heart helps me move forward. Life is no longer stranded. The world is grand. Life is in my hands. Love always helps me move forward. Always cultivate before time fades away. Time passes in the blink of an eye. We cannot go back in time. Let's get together and strive forward. Love always helps me move forward. Make my life shine and be the star of life. It's always bright. Love always reminds me to move forward. Time is ticking and slipping away. Love always reminds me to move forward. Winds blow and clouds come and go. Love always reminds me to move forward. Happiness in my hands. Life is so grand. A voice in my heart helps me move forward. Life is no longer stranded. The world is grand. Life is in my hands. Love always helps me move forward. Always cultivate before time fades away. Time passes, blink of an eye. We cannot go back in time. Let's get together, stride forward. Love always helps me move forward. Make my life shine and be the star of life. It's always bright. Love always reminds me to move forward. Time is ticking and slipping away. Love always reminds me to move forward. Winds blow and clouds come and go. Love always reminds me to move forward. Happiness in my hands. Life is so grand. Love always reminds me to move winds blow and clouds come and go. Love always reminds me to move forward. Endless happiness makes my life so grand. An amazing life is always in my hands.
Hello and welcome to our Super Life Secret Codes online workshop. My name is Ryan Sway, and first I'd like to thank Master Sun for providing us these great tools to improve our lives. I also want to thank our panelists and all the participants watching online. Super Life Secret Codes teaches us how to take control of life using energy management. The book was written as a life manual focusing on the two codes of love and gratitude. If used properly, these two codes can help us achieve success in every aspect of our lives. Okay, welcome everyone. And tonight we are continuing our conversation on energy selling. And this is such an important part of the book. And it is something that energy selling is something we do all the time. It's not just for salespeople, it's not just for professional stuff, but really it's things, Master Sun talks about things at home, like where do you want to eat? Sometimes if you want to eat something, let's say I want to eat steak, I have to kind of sell that. And so my energy is going to be kind of important. If someone else wants to eat something else, one of us will kind of convince each other of picking one or the other's choices. So when you think about energy selling, you want to consider that in more aspects or almost all aspects of your life. Anytime that you're trying to get not necessarily just your way, but to kind of have a direction and try to achieve that goal, it does take proper energy. And the other part of energy selling that's so important is when your energy is either really high, you have kind of very unique decision-making patterns. Your motivations are different. And when your energy is really low, you also have very different decision-making patterns or motivations. And what do I mean by that is, if you're a billionaire, then a lot of money things may not motivate you as much, like normal things, like make $100 or make $1,000 or even $10,000 or $100,000. For a billionaire, it may not be that big of a deal. They may not want to spend their time on it. They'd rather go on vacation. For others, to make $100,000, let's say in a month on a project or a deal, could be a big thing. So your energy level will make you look at things slightly different. And then, of course, if you have zero energy, the idea of stealing something to get $100 might be a consideration. Even though getting caught stealing could put you in jail, get you in trouble with the police, if your energy is low enough, you may think about that. So we have to recognize how important energy is. If I'm trying to sell something or get convince people, persuade them, if my energy is very low, think about some of the things I might be telling them. And you've probably heard this from people. They give you these reasons that really are on the verge of, you shouldn't even have told me this about this situation. right? They use examples of, well, if you don't do this, something super bad could happen. And then it makes some people think, well, why would I even want to consider this whole thing at all? I never thought going out to dinner was going to cause me a problem. Now that you mentioned this, I don't even know if I want to go out to dinner, right? Something like that. And then also on the other side of things, if your energy is so high and the people you're dealing with don't match, that's also a skill set, right? I have a client who flies private, so that's his choice. And he doesn't say, Ryan, come with me and then pay $5,000 because that's how much it would cost. He'd say, hey, meet me somewhere. I'm going to be here. And then if it would be up to me to say, hey, how about I chip in and fly with you on your private jet, whatever. Because my energy level is not the same as his. I wouldn't spend that kind of money. So energy isn't always just about money, but I think money is an easy way to reference it because everybody kind of has that understanding of the value of money. Another area that I think is easy for us to measure energy is time. So using time, if I have a lot of time, I may say, hey, let's go drive somewhere far away. Hey, Vivian, let's go drive to Alaska. And Vivian would say, I don't have 2 weeks to drive that far. Let's jump on an airplane and we can get there in 4 or 5 hours, right? So time is also something. When you're talking to people, when you're persuading or when you want to help someone or you're thinking about things, like all of these things have to come into play. And we won't know what to do if we don't have that energy management system in place that Super Life Secret Codes teaches us. So we really want to be careful when we're energy selling because sometimes you can be too much. And I think we've all experienced that from somebody that was just a little too energetic, too excited about something. It almost scares you, because when you expect something kind of mellow and calm and then out comes this crazy amount of energy, sometimes we get thrown off and it's like, whoa, settle down, and you kind of can get turned off with it. So again, energy selling really revolves around this concept and know-how of energy management. It's a skill, and as we read this section, you'll learn more things about this idea of energy selling. But it's kind of multifaceted, so it's not just, again, like I mentioned in some of the examples, it's not just have lots of energy. That's not always the case. You have to know your audience, right? There's lots of people talk about that. Know your audience. Don't come in screaming and yelling to a very quiet person. And then don't come in super quiet and kind of soft to a person that is just more kind of loud and, almost on the verge of obnoxious, right? So energy selling, all of this, it's all part of this management. And we have to, one, be able to manage our energy, period, at least within ourselves. And if we can do that, then we have a better chance at managing our energy to affect people and hopefully bring out certain things in people that we are, trying to do. Okay, so with that, I'd now like to introduce our panelists. We have Amy from Las Vegas, Nevada, and we have Vivian from Walnut, California. And again, the format of the book, When the Source is Connected, Abundance is So Simple, is a dialogue between Master Sun and a student. I will be reading Master Sun's section, so if you hear my voice, those are the words of Master Sun, and Amy and Vivian will be reading the student section, so if you hear their voices, you'll know those are the words of the student. Okay, so let's get started, and Vivian and I will be starting from page 165. Oops. Let me adjust some.
I think I will start. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Is master referring to spiritual energy?
Not only spiritual, every action of yours is a form of energy distribution. Let's begin with the foundation of selling. You need to observe the intonation of one's speech. Which tone should you use to end each sentence to make your speech more pleasing? Selling is a joyful task. You can experiment with this every day. Maybe you will fail in the first 10 minutes, but if you persist, adjust your style of speech, and reapproach the customer, eventually you will turn out to be very professional.
What are ending tones? Are they like yeah?
Yes, you can't learn this in one day, but you need continuous practice. Besides intonation, you need to watch for the speed of your speech. A good salesperson should not talk too fast or too slow. You should adapt your speed to suit your customer. There is no fixed rule in the first few exchanges. You should quickly establish the preferred speed of speech by your customer. If he wants you to talk fast, talking slowly may deter the conversation.
So we have gone through 4 skills of effective communication: sincerity with integrity, avoid showing sign of hard selling, adjusting intonation, and adapting speed of speech. Good energy should support all these skills, right?
Energy selling means you need to control and adjust your energy prior to selling. When your energy field is strong, what you say will impress the other party. When your speech is weak, what you try to sell will not be appealing. Selling may involve amplifying your capability again. This will be adjusted accordingly depending on the level of acceptance of each customer. Avoid making judgment of people.
We should not assume, but we should attempt to understand each customer, right?
Yes, life is like a drama. Customer relationship and management is an art. The question is if you can master this art to an extent where it is natural, sincere, and inviting. If you do, you have reached a good state in life. The intonation used in a selling speech is very key. You can pre record your speech to review and improve.
I never thought there were so many things to learn about speech.
Refrain from telling yourself you can't change. When all means are exhausted, changes are necessary, solutions emerge. When you are facing a bottleneck and you need a breakthrough, you just need to toughen up and start practicing. Apply the skills you need in effective selling to your daily life and practice diligently. When your skill is well honed, do you believe you will naturally stand out from the crowd and emerge as the winner?
Definitely.
Okay, great. Vivian, would you like to share?
Yes. Thanks for letting me read this section. Learning in Super Life Cyclical, we know everything is related to energy. Not only what the masters are saying here, not only spiritual, every action of ours is a form of energy distribution. For energy selling, the masters mentioned here, I think speaking is important for us to pay attention to. Here, Master Sang emphasized we should observe the tone, the speed of intonation of our speech. We can experiment it in our daily life. As Master Sang mentioned here, we might not succeed right away, but as long as we persist and adjust the style of our speech, we definitely can do it. Think of last Sunday's workshop. The topic is how to enhance the efficiency of communication. This makes me recall a case happened several years ago. I remember at that time, our company had a new business plan. Since it's totally new to everyone, we have to call a meeting. This is a weekly meeting, including all the related departments from each region. And then each meeting took about a couple hours. And then everyone spoke up for their own needs. And sometimes coworker A brought up a plan, coworker B denied, and coworker C might think of other tax issue. Uh, Coworker D also felt the system probably couldn't support this plan, etc. I still remember a female manager just mentioned certain action would give a lot of trouble, uh, which means a lot of manual work to her department members. And the other male manager right away bullied her by saying, "Hey, we are here to resolve the issues, not listen to your complaint. And at that moment, all of us in the meeting feel so awkward. We don't know how to react. Luckily, someone jumped in to say something else. And then also the female manager didn't fight back. Otherwise, the meeting would be so hard to continue. And I just feel like her energy selling is not right and making other coworkers think she's complaining. And then from here, I do think work itself is not that big deal. The terrible thing is the deficiency in communication. And then I have new findings from there. And then I feel like most of the time we lack of effective communication is because we speak too fast, like Master Sam mentioned here. Here, we speak too fast without a thorough thinking process. Like the story I just shared, the female manager just wanted to tell everyone, okay, the fact, okay, the new process make her teammate have to work extra hours. Probably the tone of her speech was kind of rush, and then she just wanted to tell everyone the truth, but she didn't pay attention to the tone and the speed of the speech. Therefore, the other manager criticized her. Hey, you stop complaining. And then I think Master Sang always tell us we can enhance our wisdom when we are calm. And then by doing so, we can prevent being so hurry, okay, to make mistakes. So speech is an art. We should calm down ourselves first before talking. And then just like Master Sang say here, we have to control and adjust our energy prior to selling. And then then we are able to build up the clean thinking process by giving a clear goal to the other party, so we can expect to receive proper feedback and avoid misunderstanding and confusion. And the other thing I think of is in this story is the lady just think of her own department. This relates to Master Sang always ask us to get rid of only thinking of me. By shrinking of the big me, we can consider the big picture first, which we can set up a good example within the group. And it will also make other participants adopt the same concept to think of others first. So the communication will definitely become harmonious. Next is what Master Sang always remind us to speak with softer tone. Even if we stand at the right point, we should be reasonable and soft. Like this great Mr. Tsai says, we should watch our facial expression and the tone of speech. And because the purpose of communication is not to win the battle, but we hope others can really listen to what we try to communicate. Just like Master Sang say here, life is like a drama, it's an art too. We are the director, actor, actress, and then playwright. And then if we can master this art, we can definitely reach a good state in life. Thank you. This is just my sharing today.
Thank you, Vivian, for your reading and sharing. Vivian mentioned communication, and we don't realize how important communication is. So many times I've heard people talking, and I could be a third party listening, and you could just see how things go sideways. Like especially when I listen to my two kids have their conversations, and sometimes it leads to an argument. But when you're listening, it's just like, wow, the communication is so far off. One person's talking about A, the other person's talking about B. Then they eventually end up at C, and it's totally different. And then they argue about each thing, and really the communication's not there. And I think energy selling is part of this whole equation, as to how much effort you put into communication to get to a certain point. And I think in companies, it's oftentimes a problem. In my experience, I see people, they make assumptions, and there's an acronym for the assumption, right? An assumption is you make an ASS out of you and me. So assume means you make an ASS out of you and me. And so people say don't assume, right? But with communication, I think a lot of times we do make assumptions, especially in the workplace, like Vivian shared. Most people think that everybody's kind of in that work mode and doing something towards the goal of work. But every once in a while, someone may introduce a personal perspective to something, and that could create a bad communication. And what I see is when we have bad communication, when there's a gap, it allows us to tap into different data. So I imagine like in the workplace, if a person doesn't do exactly what they're supposed to at that moment, it really depends on the data that the people around them have towards them, right? If you've been known to be lazy or pass the buck to someone else, it's very quick for people to kind of assign that role to you and say, oh, so-and-so is being lazy again, right? And then they kind of get upset. If we communicate properly, there's no room for that gap. And today in an earlier workshop, we were talking about these gaps in our lives when we have doubt or if we have negative energy, we're blaming people, these kind of negative things, they are the little gaps. And oftentimes the path that we're supposed to go on has a lot of gaps. It's, if you're lucky, it's like one good thing, one good step, then a gap, another step, and you can kind of step over and still get to your destination. But if you have too many gaps, then it looks like the path is not there and it makes you change path. So if you think about when we communicate with someone, if you take out certain key elements, then that person has to fill in those gaps. And depending on that person's mood or positioning or experience with you, they fill in the gaps with, you know, what they have. And so how do we avoid these problems? I think is exactly how, you know, what Vivian was sharing about having this communication. Energy selling requires extremely good communication. And if we miss a step, we create a gap, you very likely allow your, say, customer or whoever you're trying to sell to fill that gap with something you may not want. And so it's extremely important that we monitor this and through our communication, make sure we do steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, if it's 10 steps. Be very clear, be very, you know, concise about it, and not allow someone to put in kind of their own perspective. If we do that, then our ability to sell something gets diminished. And if we start a pattern of that, then we pretty much lose our ability to kind of sell this. So as Vivian mentioned, I think communication is very, very powerful and necessary. And we have to have the intention to communicate clearly and not assume that the other person is on the same page, which in my personal experience, when I do that, it does leave a lot of room for error and oftentimes kind of bites you in the butt in the long run, because you had great intentions, didn't communicate well, or assumed that, you know, everybody's on the same page, and then it could, you know, end up being a bad communication. So Vivian, thank you for, you know, sharing that with us. And again, I think for all of us, we want to really keep in mind when we're trying to improve our energy selling, one huge aspect or a huge area to consider is our ability to communicate clearly and effectively. Okay. Moving forward, Amy and I will be reading from page 167, and it looks like I start. Okay, energy selling prerequisite 2, setting the right attitude. The next factor about energy selling is attitude. All your actions directly affect the feelings of your customer in the form of energy. You need to exhibit complete confidence with your customers and hold great self-persistence. No matter how unreasonable they are, you should stay cordial with them. Sustain your passion of service and decisiveness all the way until you secure the deal. There is no standard on how you should keep your attitude. There is no right or wrong answer to this. It all depends on your experience and the prevailing atmosphere between you and them. For example, if you have built enough friendship, you can crack jokes with them and they will not be offended. And it improves bonding.
This is really an art to master.
Indeed. I have one experience. One day I was visiting the general manager of a major corporation. The gentleman invited 20 heads of department to meet me. All these people bombarded me with nonstop questions. They were trying to understand our level of service and potential models of collaboration. I was handling all these steadily. I kept my enthusiasm, answered them in detail, and with patience. Everyone was pleased, and I finally managed to close the deal. Hence, you need to keep practicing and mastering your attitude all the time, so that it can be applied when the time comes.
People who cannot handle this will lose orders and need to hide in a corner when they return to the office.
This is really true. Almost all orders I closed were large orders, and I was welcomed by companies. Business is realistic, so we need to polish up our capability all the time. The objective of sharing this story with you is so that you recognize the importance of continuous self-training in business and apply them in your daily life. Make yourself ready to embrace learning and accepting challenges at all times.
Same as business, but the way bosses treat small business and a big business are completely different. Exactly how long does a small business need to sustain before hitting it big?
As long as the attitude is right, you are already halfway to becoming a big business, and the next thing is do not screw up in the process. You cannot just rely on effective communication. You still need to be down to earth and diligently deliver an excellent product and service in order to excel.
Yes, being down on earth will sail us through smoothly. I realize having excellent attitude is not only key in business, but it is critical in our daily life too.
Of course, if you lead an energetic and cheerful life, people are happy to be with you. Others may just get 20 plus orders in a year, but you could be closing several orders a day and your life will be wonderful. A lot of people who end up becoming bosses started from being a salesperson. People who have accomplishment command more attention and support. So you decide if you want to be a hero or a zero.
So, in our voice and intonation training, we can record ourselves and adjust accordingly. How do we review and practice attitude?
Let me give you an assignment. Go and find a few people, either your friends or strangers, and take the role as the interviewer. During your interview, try out different glares and observe the interviewee's reactions. Start with using the kindest glare, followed by the sharpest glare during your interviews. Observe how the interviewee responds and take notes. In our next lesson, I will review the notes with you and guide you through so you can learn more about yourself.
Thank you, Master. This is a very interesting experiment. I shall implement this right away.
Okay, thanks for reading and sharing. So this section, as we're talking about energy selling, it does really touch on, or not really, it relies a lot on our attitude. And this attitude is, as it talks about in this section about what service are you offering? What do you offer? What are you selling? It really comes down to that. When I'm in my line of work with real estate, the company that I work for likes to call us real estate advisors. As I kind of look at what I do in terms of selling, I felt like I was more of a curator rather than just an advisor, right? So, and why do I say that? The reason I say that is an advisor is kind of taking information and making suggestions. A curator's taking information, gathering all that. There are suggestions, and then there's the collaboration of how to make this all happen. And then the actual curation is putting all of it together and making it something, right? So you have to collect, collaborate, then you curate, then you created the product or service that you're supposed to be selling. And to do this, yes, you have to have the right attitude, right? And as a real estate agent, sometimes the attitude is, let me just find the right, product, a house or property for my client. That's my job, right? Well, what I realize is there's sometimes more to it than that. Sometimes the house that your client wants doesn't exist and you have to build it. Well, before you can build it, you have to have a piece of land. So you have to find the land. Before you find that piece of land, you have to find the community or the location. And so all of these things have to kind of come together. And as an advisor, you can keep telling people about new things or seeing, hey, here's this, check out this, check out that, and you just provide information. But it doesn't have the energy as a curator who's not only presenting things, but also putting other pieces together. Like I mentioned, you collect, and then you present, you show the collaboration between whether it's the builder, the architect, whoever is involved, you show the collaboration. And then from there, you start to really put the pieces together to create that finished product, which in the end is the curation part of things. Having that attitude, it changes your position with people. You become an expert, not only with the information as like say an advisor, but now you're like integral to the actual outcome of the project. This is when people start to include you in everything because you're curating it now. You're not just, one piece of it, you're actually trying to curate the whole process. And in my personal, again, in my workplace, in my career, with my clients, I have taken on that attitude, which has put me into that role. And so as I'm sharing this with you, it's not just theory, it's actual practice. I positioned myself, the attitude was not only do I know, have I studied the market, our local market, found the right architects or studied the architects, researched and the builders, like really look at all the pieces of the puzzle. I actually kind of created a vision of this whole community. And of course, that vision is gathering information, some of which is not public yet, some of which is, and putting together this story. So you kind of curate this story, and that's the story, that's the finished product or the image or experience that my client's going to end up with. So I think that changes everything. But you can't just do that from a position of, hey, I want to sell you something, because what you want to sell does not exist. And so I think the attitude is so important. Do you have the attitude? Do you have the belief that your role is kind of multi-leveled beyond just, say, typing in the data or presenting the data? At what point do you put yourself, have the attitude and the positioning to put yourself as the person taking this data and presenting something more visionary, more this is where we could be or what we could be doing, or this is, we need something kind of bold or make a breakthrough. That takes a certain attitude. And the attitude doesn't mean you just think you're really good and you get arrogant or conceited. The attitude for me, and it's been, super helpful. And again, I know a lot of this ties into having the right energy, using the tools of Super Life Secret Code. So it allows me this kind of runway to go and put all this stuff together and then to be in that position to be able to curate. A year ago or 2 years ago, I didn't have this opportunity. And so I'm really grateful for it. So again, coming back to that attitude in terms of, energy selling, you have to adjust your attitude to one that, yes, you can do it. But how do you get to that point where you can do it? You have to do the research. You have to know things. You have to, go out and, look under every rock, start to put all the data together and see where could this be? Where would it want to be, if you were XYZ? Having that kind of a vision for something, then maybe using data from other places or history to, come to put together kind of this precedence of how you can achieve certain things. That is what the attitude will lead you to, right? So I think this section is the most important section in terms of energy selling. Because if you don't have the right attitude, you're just providing a service, and that service is, it's kind of replaceable. And so you want to have the attitude like what you're providing, like I look at it as curating something. It's not that easy to do. And it requires working at different levels at different times with different people. It's not just show up to work. Sometimes as a curator, you don't even know where you're going to show up to that day. Sometimes you get lucky and you get a meeting and you meet someone that becomes part of your collection of collaborators that you can then put together and curate the finished product. So this attitude is really important. And sometimes having the right attitude will allow you to listen to things that you may not feel like you need to. Earlier this morning, I was on a call with another agent in another part of town in San Diego, California, and I 90% listened in the conversation, put in maybe 10% just giving some information and stuff. But I learned a lot about the San Diego market and this person's 30 plus years of experience. And I felt that was extremely helpful for me because, again, as a curator, there are times that you have to be the collector of information, which would be kind of similar to what an advisor would tell you. And then as you collect that information, then we're also keeping an eye out for the good collaboration, right? So if we have this attitude of, say, curating projects, everything is important, and you can start to, again, collect information, find your collaborators, and then put it all together. And today, like I said, listening to this person, and truly, I was listening. It wasn't me trying to tell him anything or I have so-and-so. It was really, learning from this person. And I was really appreciative. And I told him, thanked them. And it's very helpful. So now I can go and talk to the client and begin the process of, is there a good collaboration here? And can we put something together to kind of get, the result that the client is looking for? So again, to be successful and have a strong energy selling, we have to take on the attitude. And there is a saying, fake it till you make it. I'm not a big believer in that, but sometimes you have to position yourself where you want to be, at least put yourself on the path to get to that destination. And as a result of that, there's a little bit of faking it till you make it, but just maybe like the first two steps. And then after that, you got to be able to kind of back it up. So as you think about energy selling, look at where you start with your attitude, because your attitude will trigger the actions, the behavior, the energy necessary. So if you think about, if your attitude is, I want to be the 10th best in this race of 20 people, you're not really pushing yourself to the limit, right? You're pushing yourself to halfway. And it may be very easy for you. So you may not have to prepare very much. You may not have to worry. But if you change that attitude and say you want to be the best, number one, then it requires more work, more preparation, and accountability. And so this attitude really flips on all of these switches. And so if you're struggling, with the success that you hope for or want, possibly your attitude is off a little bit and you haven't turned on all the switches needed to get to your end goal. So as we talk about this energy selling part of things, attitude is so important, and you have to kind of step back for a second, almost like look in the mirror and figure out what your attitude is. Are you a person, are you confident? Are you still searching? Are you in need of something? Do you know you don't know anything? Are you kind of flying by the seat of your pants type thing? All of these things will give a different delivery or presentation of yourself. So from my experience, collecting all the data that I can, making the connections with different people to allow for potential collaborations has really helped me become a curator of things. And the end result is something that not everybody can produce. And it is because of all the pieces in the middle. And for me, it all starts with an attitude to create this. Without that attitude, I think I would just kind of go through the motions and do the more basic things and be the advisor and say, well, here's this information, and based on this information, you should do this. Lots of times, bringing the client to a place to start doing something, but then almost creating a position for this client to then need someone else to take them to the finish line. And that's definitely not my attitude. I want to be the one that takes the client to the finish line, and then embed in them that I'm the one that can always help them get to the finish line. Even when the game itself is not determined yet, we can create it, we can build it, we can, if you can think it, we can make it, or, that type of mentality or attitude. So as you work on your energy selling, before you do anything, check your attitude and see where you are, where you want to be. And you'll be surprised if you can make a few core adjustments at the attitude level, the rest of it kind of falls into place. So thank you for letting me read and share. We'll move forward to the next section, and Amy and I'll be reading from page 169.
Okay. You will
Looks like I start.
Okay.
Okay. Energy selling prerequisite 3, discard the no mentality. We are starting a new week now. Can you share what happened in the previous week?
Sure. Time really flew during last week. I have learned very much. I interviewed 8 people. The first person exhibited a high level of sincerity and maturity and was honest with his career history. It seemed he could fit into the job, but the shortfall was he had strong views. For example, he refused to do overtime.
The reason why I wanted you to interview different people is so that you can differentiate the different psychology of being a boss and an employee. If you can't work overtime, it is difficult for you to run sales. Life is like a drama. Such people are already limiting their path. This is a no-no in the field of selling.
No sounds very serious.
Yes, a big no. When you are doing business, unless you are not interested to close the deal, you never say no. If you have a sense of rejection, then your deal will go off track. Always remember the principle of business. Never think no. Never say no.
Never think no sounds impossible to achieve. How can we do so?
Adjust your mindset and thoughts. This is the only way to lead a smooth life. If you keep creating all the impossibilities, your life will be difficult. You can always say, I have my principle. When I say no, it means no. With this, you will end up putting all the good fortune bestowed on you to waste.
Understand. Going back to the example of the interview you mentioned, I started seeing the problems between the two parties.
Very good. This is what I wanted you to see. What about the second one?
The strength of the second interviewee was his frankness. He was very open. However, this was also his weakness. Sometimes being too open will end up offending people.
Being too frank is another big no in the field of selling. What do you think is the great role of selling?
Strike deals.
Correct. If you do not properly control what you say, you will have a hard time in selling. A salesperson forms the bridge between a company and the customers. You wear different hats at different times. Sometimes you represent the company, sometimes you represent the customer. At times, you are just the bridge. When you are clear about your roles at different times, you will then understand how you should act and you need to be flexible. Just remember, do not burn bridges, otherwise, you limit your space for negotiation and growth.
Understand.
Okay, would you like to share it?
Yes, yes. So this part is so helpful and so insightful. When I first read about this book, especially this particular section, I didn't really relate to the information because I'm not working in sales. So I go, why do I care about interviewing people or reading about interviewing people? But later on, I learned from Master Sun is that life is about selling. And then I go back to the book and I go, oh, okay, now everything start to make sense because everyday life we deal with not just things, we deal with people, and people is the biggest factor in an element in elements in our life. So if we cannot deal with people very well, we have a lot of conflict or issues. Life is not smooth. So oftentimes people in terms of interaction, we want to win, we want to be right. Because of our positioning is wrong or off, therefore we're not getting the result we're looking for because the other person does not agree. So if we set the positioning correctly, we want the best result for win-win, then it starts to change everything. It starts to change the words we say, the direction of the conversation, and it's just our mindset will completely change. I used to not know about this, and I just want to be right. So I would get into a fight with Ryan, and both of us would spend 1 hour, 2 hours just on back and forth debating, but we go nowhere at the end. We're both so tired and so hurt. And we say a lot of bad things along the way. They don't really help, and they have nothing to do with where we want to be. And it's just trying to say things to hurt each other. So therefore we feel good. And that is so wrong. But Master San teaches us to set a positioning. Okay, if we want to get to a good place and this is the result we're looking for, then we understand that we're trying to communicate or to convince someone. So saying no or use a harsh tone or words absolutely will not help. Nobody likes it. Not just the significant other, even friends and strangers don't like it. Nobody on earth like it. So how do we get there? It's like what Master Sun is teaching us. All these techniques is to watch out for the tone. Don't be so harsh. Sometimes we never pay attention to the way we talk. That's why we need to record. Doing the live show is amazing because we record and go back to listen and to listen to the words and the tone. Sometimes you catch so many mistakes because sometimes we talk too flat or sometimes we break at the wrong place. We don't stop, we don't pause, and the listener gets so tired they can't breathe. If we just blah, 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 like a machine gun, they can't breathe. So they get very tired. They don't want to listen to us. And the tone would actually move people's emotions. So if you can convey with extra energy, maybe more caring energy, more exciting energy, you can convince somebody better. So the tone and the voice is very important. And also don't right away say no. I think we tend to do that, and we thought we'd be very candid, but then the other person gets shut down right away, and they stop listening, and then right away we trigger fighting. So how can we say something else and redirect another person? It's not no. There is always an option, but can we try to do that? Can we try to do this? Can we try to do that? And eventually we come to the middle ground, and that's a smart way of communication. And even talking to our significant other or our children, at work, it's the same thing. If you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Um, and I want to share about the our a realization recently. We have a friend. He's got very, very bad temper and very short temper, and gets triggered by so many things, can make him mad. So oftentimes, especially like road rage, it happens with him all the time. So every time we're driving on the road, some people cut us off. We're slow, and we're okay. But we will always think about this friend who said, "Oh man, if it's we call him that, just say Bob. If it's Bob, he is going to be pissed, and he's going to do this, and he's going to do this." And we say for sure he's going to um, drive past this person and trying to race with this person, and maybe possibly stop his car to kind of intimidate the other person. And we would say, oh, it's so him. So after a while we realize, wow, why is this friend so angry? And I realized this person is so, in a way, very strong-headed, and can defend for himself, obviously, but he is one of the most vulnerable person, because anybody can make him mad just like that. Somebody can just drive a little bit slower in front of him, and you can piss him off 110%. So it's that predictable. So if we are just like that, we're not strong, we're not powerful, we're this close to be on edge. Well, we're on edge every single day. So cultivation is to cultivate calmness, and calmness is one end, and getting mad for everything is on the other end. Where are we? Do we always get pissed and mad? We're impatient all the time? Or we're on the other spectrum, at the other end, that we build up so much tolerance and understanding and love and gratitude, so we have more room for situations to happen, and we're more flexible, so we can get hit by this thing and that thing, and we're still okay. So this is what we call cultivation. It's not to get strong personality, egotistic, or strong or headed. It can't do that. We have to build up our resilience, and to be able to take in more and still stay calm. And that's the purpose of cultivation. From there, we can have a lot more happiness. Can you imagine we're so sensitive with everything, and everything can make us mad, and we'll be going home from outside, coming home. Every day we're frustrated, we're depleted, we're like so tired because we're so, angry with one, two, three, four, five, six, so many things. Or we come home, we're always bringing smiles because we have collected one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight good things today. So, how about we collect good things? That is positivity and that's happiness. Another thing is we always Master San teaches us to look inward instead of looking outward. The reason why we cannot find happiness is because we always look outside and we're trying to find solutions. But solutions are never outside. The minute we go to, like, for example, we try to ask somebody else to cast spell on us or go to whatever, buy certain things, trying to put, like crystal, whatever, to help us to get better, that is still outside. But the permanent answer, the ultimate answer is inside. And people still have hard time finding it after a while, after all, because what is inside? I can't find it. What is happiness? Still can't find it. But Master San teaches us to self-reflect. When we self-reflect, we know, okay, the problem is not on anybody but me. Let me see what I did wrong. Let me see how can I improve. If we always question, um, no, I mean, ask ourselves questions, having a conversation with ourselves and finding out how can I do better and what mistakes I am making or I have made, then we can find the true solution and the answer of happiness. On top of that, when we have doubts, like I don't see any problem. I am perfect. Then we look at 弟子规 side by side and then go through each item or each line and see what have we missed. I assure you, you're gonna find a ton, a dozen or two, or even more. When we get into it, we're gonna realize, wow, there's so many logic, so many things I have not complied. So once we see that, and then we make correction, happiness right away arises. I used to be so angry when I drive because I always think everybody is stupid. It's you're too slow, you're too fast, you cut me off. So I'm very impatient. But after learning Super Life Secret Codes, I have built up love and gratitude. I think differently and I read things differently. The same thing happened to me, but I would go, you know what? I bet that person is on edge. He's really maybe having a lot of stress. So he's cutting people off left and right, like like a, like a crazy person driving through cars. And you have a better understanding. Sometimes I see very, very, very slow cars and so slow that you question what is happening. But then I would talk to myself. I say, you know what? What if this is the elder person, maybe 80 or very old and still trying to drive? Good for you. One day when I get old, I hope somebody else can be as nice to me. And sometimes it could be a new driver, it could be a teenager, maybe 15, 16 years old, and this is his first day of driving, and maybe he or she is very nervous right now. So, you know, give somebody a break and have compassion and gratitude towards this person. And when I talk to myself things like that, it doesn't matter which version, and I just go, oh, no problem, just go right ahead. Sometimes you see crazy person and you just go, oh, please go right ahead, because I don't want to mess around with crazy person. Because if you're trying to be aggressive, you can very sure that that person is going to come back and do something crazy. So why bother to get into problem? As I just think in my mind, please welcome, go right ahead. But which something I couldn't do before. So it's all about mindset, that the more we can practice and learn and look inward, how can I improve myself? How can I change instead of you need to change, you are stupid or you're this and this, then every day we open our eyes, we go on the road, we're going to see a ton. And especially when we're agitated, the more we're agitated, we will see, we catch even more annoying things. Have you noticed that? Anytime you put your mind to something, you're going to see more. So that's how it goes. It's a law of attraction. So if we have calmness, most likely, throughout the day, things are great. When we go to the supermarket or go to places, you're always going to see people smiling at you or be nice to you because our mind is happy and friendly, and we're going to see the same thing. So let's practice that, and gradually we can see the world in a complete different way. That's my sharing.
Thank you, Amy, for your sharing. Um, yeah, so as Amy was talking about that person, with a lot of road rage or even people just with anger in general, this is part of the energy management side of things that we have to work on. And again, a little bit towards an attitude is we have to have the right positioning and attitude to not just keep collecting more and more negative energy. We have to recognize that it's accumulating and it's becoming too much based on our actions. And I think a lot of people talk about forgetting or letting things go, but they still hold on to that data because we're working with the law of conservation of energy, which is we cannot just erase data. You can't just wipe it out from existence. It can be converted, transformed, but it cannot just be picked up and just say, poof, this is gone, right? So if you think about that, that means we can't just say, I'm letting it go just like that, easy, no action needed. Just like we also can't just create energy from nothing. This is a law, like a physics, a law of conservation of energy, so that we have to recognize when we do have these negative thoughts, or like Amy said, when she had a lot of anger towards drivers being idiots and stuff, that thought, it's kind of an attitude too, and it starts to create a lens to look at people who drive not so good. Road rage is one thing. Other people, you can judge people. Like a lot of times people, like being racist, they look at a person based on how they look, whatever color their skin is or whatever, and they judge them based on that because of data. The sad part is I've talked to a lot of people about racism, and most people learn about racism through hearing about it. A smaller percentage have been affected personally, experienced it, but a lot of people, it's hearing about it, reading it on the news, seeing it on the news, reading it in articles and stuff. And so that becomes your data. So can you imagine if you surround yourself with people who talk about it all the time or complain, you watch news, and you're gonna just fill yourself up with that data. So when you get on the road, what do you think is going to happen? You're just going to trigger these things. And so it's really important that we learn how to, eliminate that. Because as we talk about energy selling, if you're filled with that, it's hard to hide that energy. Something will be off, and someone may receive you differently than you would like them to. And so think about that in your own life. How often have you been misunderstood? And then ask yourself why, depending on who that person is. Like husband and wife, obviously, with a lot of years behind and experience, there are many misunderstandings. So we understand that happens, and it's a fact. The question now is, how does it happen? What's the data that either the husband gives off that triggers from the wife, or vice versa, the wife does and the husband? And we can talk about common things in marriages, stereotype stuff, like husband likes to do things on his own, kind of with his buddies or something, and then the wife likes to shop. Like these are two very common stereotypes, right? What does that do in your relationship if you think about that, if that's your data? And so that's really the important part, because if that's in your energy data, that's kind of what you're selling. So if you're going to try to build a relationship with someone, whether it's business, whether it's, romantic, whatever the case may be, what data are you working with when it comes to relationships? If you have challenges, if you're the type of person with friends that people have a problem with, it's very likely that that's the energy you're going to be selling. And if you're, super social and everybody loves you, then it's probably the energy you're going to be selling. So we need to know these things, so that we can make adjustments. So if you're too serious, or you're not serious enough, or you're too loud, or you're not loud enough, whatever the case may be, if you're working on the energy selling, we have to kind of dig in and see what energy are we working with, and then figure out how is it coming out of us. And once you can do that, and you look at some of the key points we talked about, like your attitude, as Amy mentioned earlier, she's never really been in sales, but what's the attitude she has towards sales, right? Like, is she opposed to it? Is everybody out there a used car salesperson that lies? And, and even that's kind of unfair to say, right? Because not every used car salesman's a liar. We just know that they want to sell you a car. You showed up on a car lot. They assume you wanted to buy a car. So they're going to do their best to try to sell it to you. Some kind of bend the rules a little, bend the lines a little bit. But in the end, you did show up on a car lot, and that's why you're talking to used car salesmen. They didn't come knocking on your door at your house trying to pull you out to buy a car, right? So again, attitude, our data, all of that will affect our ability to sell a certain type of energy to get an outcome from other people. So with that, I want to thank Vivian and Amy for their reading and sharing. Also want to thank all the participants online. And last but not least, we want to thank Master Sun for providing us these great tools to improve our lives. Have a great rest of your night in the US and a great rest of your day in Asia. Thank you.